Hi guys, thanks for joining me in story time with Balaji. I'm gonna go into chapter 2 now, and the title of this chapter is "The Richest Man in Babylon Tells His System." In old Babylon, there once lived a certain very rich man named Arkad. Far and wide, he was famed for his great wealth. He was also famed for his liberality. He was generous in his charities. He was generous with his family. He was liberal in his own expenses. But nevertheless, each year his wealth increased more rapidly than he spent it. And there were certain friends of younger days who came to him and said, "You, Arkad, are more fortunate than we. You have become the richest man in all of Babylon, while we struggle for existence. You wear the finest garments, and you enjoy rare foods, while we must be content to clothe our families in attire barely presentable and feed them as best we can. Yet once we were equal. We studied under the same master. We played the same games, and in neither did you outshine us. And in the years since, you have become no more a honorable citizen than we have. Nor have you worked harder or more faithfully, in so far as we can judge. Why then should a fickle fate single you out to enjoy all the good things of life, and ignore us who are equally deserving?" Thereupon, Arkad replied, "If you have not acquired more than a bare existence in the years since we were youths, it is because you have either failed to learn the laws that govern the building of wealth, or else you did not observe them. Fickle fate is a notion that doesn't bring permanent good to anyone. On the contrary, those who acquire unearned gold soon spend all they receive, and are left with overwhelming appetites and desires that have not the ability to gratify. Yet others become misers and hoard their wealth, afraid to spend what they have, knowing they do not possess the ability to replace it." They are further beset by fears of robbers and doom themselves to lives of emptiness and secret misery. There are probably others who can take unearned gold and add to it and continue to be happy and contented citizens. But they are so few in number, I know of them only by hearsay. Think of the men you know and who have inherited sudden wealth, and see if what I say is not so. His friends admitted that of the men they knew who had inherited wealth, these words were true. And they begged him to explain to them how he had attained so much property. So he continued, "In my youth, I looked around and saw all the good things that could bring happiness and contentment. And I realized that wealth increased the potency of all of these. Wealth is power. With wealth, many things are possible. One may ornament one's home with the richest of furnishings. One may sail the distant seas. One may feast on delicacies of far lands. One may buy gold and precious stones. One may even build mighty temples for God. One may do all these things and many others which delight the senses and gratify the soul. And when I realized all this, I declared to myself that I would claim my share of the good things of life. I would not be the one of those who stand by enviously watching others enjoy. I would not be content to clothe myself in the cheapest attire that looked respectable. I would not be satisfied with the lot of a poor man. On the contrary, I would make myself a guest at this banquet of good things. Being, as you know, the son of a humble merchant, one of a large family with no hope of an inheritance, and not being endowed, as you have so frankly pointed out, with superior powers of wisdom. I decided that if I was to achieve what I desired, time and study would be required. As for time, all men have it in abundance. You, each of you, have let sufficient time slip by to have had made yourselves wealthy. Yet you admit you have nothing to show except your good families, of which you can be justly proud. As for study, didn't our wise teacher teach us that learning was of two kinds? One kind being the things we learned and knew, and the other being in the training that taught us how to find out what we did not know. Therefore, I decided to find out how one might accumulate wealth. And when I had found out, to make this my task and do it well, I found employment as a scribe in the Hall of Records and labored long hours each day upon the clay tablets. Week after week and month after month, I labored. Yet I had nothing to show for my earnings. Food, clothing, and penance to God absorbed all my earnings, but my determination did not leave me. And one day, Algamish, the moneylender, came to my place of employment and ordered a copy of the ninth law. And he said to me, I must have this in 2 days. And if the task is done by that time, I'll give you 2 coppers. I labored hard, but the law was long. And when Algamish returned, the task was unfinished. He was angry, but knowing my master would not permit him to injure me, I was unafraid. So I said to him, Algamish, you are a very rich man. Tell me how I, too, may become rich, and I will labor all night to complete your carving. He smiled at me and replied, You are a brazen lad, but we will call it a bargain. All that night I carved though my back hurt, and the smell of the wick made my head ache until my eyes could hardly see. But when he returned at sunup, the tablets were complete. Now, I said, tell me what you promised. You have fulfilled your part of a bargain, my son, he said to me kindly, and I'm ready to fulfill mine. I will tell you these things you wish to know, because I am getting old, and an old tongue loves to wag. And when youth comes to age for advice, he receives the wisdom of years. Too often, youth thinks that age knows only the wisdom of days gone by. But remember this. The sun that shines today is the sun that shone when your father was born, and will still be shining when your last grandchild passes on. The thoughts of youth, he continued, are bright things that shine forth like the meteors that often light up the sky. But the wisdom of old age is like the fixed stars that shine so steadfastly that sailors depend upon them to steer their course. Mark you well my words, for if you don't, you will fail to grasp the truth that I will tell you, and you will think that your night's work has been in vain. Then he looked at me shrewdly from under his shaggy brows and said in a low, forceful tone, I found the road to wealth when I decided that a part of all I earned was mine to keep. And so will you. Then he continued to look at me with a glance that I could feel pierce me, but said no more. Is that all? I asked. That was sufficient to change the heart of a sheep herder into the heart of a money lender, he replied. But all I earn is mine to keep, is it not? I demanded. Far from it, he replied. Do you not pay the clothing stores? Do you not pay the shoemakers? Do you not pay for the things you eat? Can you live in Babylon without spending? What do you have left of your earnings to show for the past month? For the past year? Fool! You pay everyone but yourself. You labor for others. You may as well be a slave and work for what your master gives you to eat and wear. However, if you kept for yourself 1/10 of all you earned, how much would you have in 10 years? My mathematical skills did not desert me, and I answered, as much as I earn in 1 year. You speak but half the truth, he retorted. Every gold piece you save is like a slave that works for you. Every copper it earns is like its child that can also earn for you. If you wish to become wealthy, then what you save must earn, and its children must earn, and its children's children must earn, so that you may acquire the abundance you crave. You may think I am cheating you for your long night's work, he continued, but I'm paying you 1,000 times over if you have the intelligence to grasp the truth I offer you. A part of all you earn is yours to keep. It should not be less than 1/10, no matter how little you earn. It can be as much more as you can afford. Pay yourself first. Do not buy from the clothing store and the shoemaker more than you can pay out of the rest, and still have enough left over for food and charity and penance to God. Wealth, like a tree, grows from a tiny seed. The first copper you save is the seed from which your tree of wealth will grow. The sooner you plant that seed, the sooner the tree can grow. And the more faithfully you nourish and water that tree with consistent savings, the sooner may you bask in contentment under its shade. So saying, he took his tablets and went away. I thought a great deal about what he had said to me, and it seemed reasonable. So I decided I would try it. Each time I was paid, I took one from each 10 pieces of copper and hid it away. And as strange as it may seem, I was no shorter of funds than before. I noticed little difference as I managed to get along without it. Often, as my savings grew, I was tempted to spend it on some of the good things the merchants displayed, brought by camels and ships from the land of the Phoenicians, but I wisely refrained. A year later, Algamish returned and said to me, "Son, have you paid yourself not less than 1/10 of all you have earned for the past year?" I answered proudly, "Yes, master, I have." "That is good," he answered, beaming upon me. "And what have you done with it?" "I gave it to Asmur, the brickmaker. He told me he was traveling over the 7 seas. An entire he will buy me rare jewels from the Phoenicians. When he returns, he shall sell these at high prices and divide the earnings." "Every fool must learn," he growled. "But why trust the knowledge of a brickmaker about jewels? Would you go to the bread maker to inquire about the stars? No, you would go to an astrologer. If you had the power to think, your savings are gone. Your savings are gone, lad. You have jerked your wealth tree up by the roots. But plant another. Try again, and next time, if you want advice about jewels, go to the jewel merchant. If you want to know about sheep, go to the herdsman. Advice is one thing that is freely given away, but watch that you take only what is worth having. One who takes advice about his savings from one who's inexperienced in such matters will pay with his savings. Saying this, he went away. And it happened just as he said, for the Phoenicians are scoundrels, and they sold Asmur worthless bits of glass that looked like gems. But as Algamish had instructed me, I again saved each 10th copper, and it was no longer difficult, for it had now become a habit. A year later, Algamish again came to the room of the scribes and addressed me. What progress have you made since I last saw you? I have paid myself faithfully, I replied, and I entrusted my savings to Aga, the shield maker, to buy bronze, and every four months he pays me a rental fee. That is good. And what do you do? And what do you do with the rental money? I have a great feast with honey and fine wine and spiced cake. I also bought myself a purple tunic, and someday I will buy myself a young donkey to ride upon. To which Algamus laughed. If you eat and spend the children of your savings, then how do you expect them to earn for you? And how can they have children that will also earn for you? First acquire for yourself an army of golden slaves. Then you may enjoy many rich banquets without regret. And so saying, he went away again. I did not see him again for 2 years, when he once more returned, and his face was full of deep lines, and his eyes drooped, for he was getting old. And he said to me, Arkad, have you achieved the wealth you dreamed of yet? And I answered, not all that I desire yet, but I have earned some, and what I've earned more, and its earnings even more. And do you still take the advice from brickmakers about brickmaking? They give good advice. I retorted. Arkad, he continued, you have learned your lessons well. You first learned to live on less money than you earned. Next, you learn to seek advice from those who are competent through their own experiences to give it. And lastly, you have learned to make gold work for you. You have taught yourself how to acquire money, how to keep it, and how to use it. Therefore, you are competent for a responsible position. I'm getting old, and my sons think of only of spending money with no thought to earning. I have many interests that I can no longer look after. If you will go to Nipper and look after my lands there, I'll make you my partner, and you will share in my estate. So I went to Nipper and took charge of his holdings, which were large. Because I was full of ambition and because I had mastered the 3 laws of successfully handling wealth, I was able to greatly increase the value of his properties. So I prospered. And when Algames passed away, I inherited the shares he had left me in the estate. So spoke Arkad, and when he finished his tale, one of his friends said, you were indeed fortunate that Algames made you a heir. I was fortunate only in that I had the desire to prosper before I first met him. Did I not prove for 4 years my definiteness of purpose by keeping 1/10 of all I earned? Would you call a fishman lucky who for years studied the habits of fish so that he could skillfully catch them in these nets? Opportunity is a proud goddess who wastes no time with those who are unprepared. You had strong willpower to keep going after you lost your first year's saving. You are unusual in that way, spoke up another. Willpower, retorted Arkad. What nonsense! Do you think willpower gives a man the strength to lift a burden that a camel cannot carry, or to draw a load that the oxen cannot budge? Willpower is but the unwavering intention to carry a task you set for yourself to completion. If I set for myself a task, be it ever so trivial, I will see it through. How else can I have confidence in myself to do important things? If I said to myself for 100 days as I walk across the bridge into the city, I'll pick up a stone from the road and throw it into the stream, I will do it. If on the 7th day I pass by without remembering, I would say to myself, tomorrow I'll throw 2 stones, which will do just as well. Instead, I would retrace my steps and throw in the stone. Nor on the 20th day would I say to myself, Arkad, this is useless. What does it help you to throw a stone every day? Just throw in a handful of stones and be done with it. No, I will not say nor do that. When I set a task for myself, I complete it. Therefore, I'm careful not to start difficult and practical tasks because I love leisure. And then another friend spoke up and said, if what you tell is true, and it does seem, as you said, reasonable, then being so simple, if all men did it, there wouldn't be enough wealth to go around. Wealth grows wherever men exert energy. Arkad replied, if a rich man builds himself a new palace, is the gold he pays out gone? No. The brickmaker has a part of it. And the laborer has part of it, and the artist has a part of it. And everyone who labors upon the house has a part of it. Yet when the palace is completed, is it not worth all it cost? And is the ground upon which it stands not worth more because it is there? And is the ground that adjoins it not worth more because it is there? Wealth grows in magic ways. No man can predict its limits. What then do you advise for us to do in order that we may also become rich? Asked still another of his friends. We are no longer young men, and we have no earnings to put aside. I advise you to take the wisdom of Algames and say to yourself, a part of all I earn is mine to keep. Say it in the morning when you first arise. Say it at noon. Say it at night. Say it each hour of every day. Say it to yourself until the words stand out like letters of fire across the sky. Impress yourself with the idea. Fill yourself with the thought. Then take whatever portion seems wise. Don't make it less than 1/10 and put it aside. Arrange your other expenditures to do this if necessary. But lay aside that portion first. Soon you will experience a rich feeling of having something that only you own. As it grows, it will stimulate you. A new joy of life will thrill you. You will be motivated to work harder, to earn even more. For of your increased earnings, won't the same percentage also be yours to keep? Then learn to make your treasure work for you. Make it your slave. Make its children and its children's work for you. Ensure an income for your future. Remember that one day you too will be numbered among the aged. Therefore, invest your treasure with great caution so that it will not be lost. Provide also for your family so that they will not be lacking should you pass away. You can provide such protection by putting aside small payments at regular intervals. The prudent man will not delay in expectation of a large sum because becoming available for such a wise purpose. Consult with wise men. Seek the advice of men whose daily work is handling money. Let them save you from errors such as those I made myself in trusting my money to the judgment of Asma, the brickmaker. A small and safe return is far more desirable than a risk. Enjoy life while you are here. Don't overstrain or try to save too much. If 1/10 of all you earn is as much as you can comfortably keep, be content to keep this portion. Otherwise, live according to your income and don't be afraid to spend. Life is good and life is rich, with things worthwhile and things to enjoy. His friends thanked him and went away. Some were silent because they could not understand. Some were sarcastic because they thought that one so rich should divide his wealth with old friends, not as fortunate. But some had a new light in their eyes. They realized that each time Algamesh had come back to the room of the scribes, he was watching a man work his way out of darkness into light. He was watching a man find a place for himself through his own understanding. These latter were the ones who in the following years frequently revisited Arkad. He received them gladly. He counseled with them and freely gave them of his wisdom, as men of broad experience are always glad to do. And he assisted them in investing their savings so that it would bring in a good interest with safety and will be neither lost nor entangled in investments that pay no dividends. The turning point in these men's lives, it came the day they realized the truth that had come from Algamesh to Arkad and from Arkad to them. the end of this chapter ends with, a part of all you earn is yours to keep, in big, bold letters. Thanks, guys.